All right, let me come back to these NSA programs in a momentous week. I wanted to have you on because I wanted to get into this debate, which we've had in the House. You had 205 members of the House, including 94 Republicans who, and I'm boiling this down, essentially voted to scrap these programs that allow the NSA, the National Security Agency, to sweep up what's called the metadata, which is call details in the United States in order to track down terrorists. Last month, General Hayden, Michael Hayden, former head of the NSA, former head of the CIA, was on Meet the Press, and he said the following about these programs. Listen.
I think it's living in this kind of a democracy. We're going to have to be a little bit less effective in order to be a little bit more transparent to get to do anything to defend the American people.
Given the kind of support for an amendment to scrap these programs, do you agree with what General Hayden said there?
Well, I'm not sure what point he was making there, but let me tell you this. I mean, I share the frustration of the American people, and that's what we saw happen recently. It was a collision of really bad, awful policies and ideas coming out of the administration. The data hub that would take Social Security and health information and other information, put it in one place. All of that is bad, and we should all be very concerned about it. The problem was this was, I think, the first opportunity for members who are frustrated about those things, and the American public is frustrated about those things, and by the way, I'm frustrated about those things, and say this is exactly the same. And unfortunately, it's not. And so this is a program, let's talk about why we have it, and this is really important to get to the point, should we or shouldn't we, is after 9/11, our intelligence services knew about a guy who's a pretty bad guy that we believed was going to be involved in some type of attempt in the United States to commit an act of violence, a terrorist, who was living in San Diego. But because we couldn't find the nexus, we were not allowed to find out if somebody from overseas was calling in to the United States to talk to him. We couldn't get that piece. We missed it. He got on a plane and flew it in to the Pentagon shortly thereafter. So we said that's a seam we have to fix. But how do we do that? Well, and what we ended up doing is the program that they tried to turn off is the program that catches foreign terrorists from talking to people in the United States. Helps us identify those.
And again, and talking to senior government officials this week, the way to understand these programs as they lay it out is to say a suspected terrorist calls somebody in the United States. The way you put those two together is that you have a haystack. And in the haystack in the United States is basically every phone number that is swept up in the United States. It's not the content of the calls, it's the details, and it's put in this kind of vault in a cloud scenario. And that you get the ping, you get that relationship I have in the haystack. Is there any way to provide better privacy when, as it's been explained to me, you either have the haystack of phone numbers and call details or you don't, and that's what libertarians are really concerned about?
Well, I understand, but here's the thing. There are so many protections here on this. Remember, there are no names and no addresses in this database. There's more information on an envelope that you fill out and stick in the mailbox than are in this database. This is billing records that already exist. They said we just need to put them in one place and hold them longer so we have a number to compare to. So they're not calling them. They're not doing pattern analysis. And here's the best part, news of all. In this program, 0 privacy violations, 54 violent terrorist attacks thwarted. That's a pretty good record. That's a great record, and that tells me this is one program that works to protect your privacy and live up to our constitutional obligation in Congress that says we must provide for the general defense of the United States. We have found how to do this and protect your privacy. Remember, most people think that these phone calls are recorded. They're not. Most people think that their names are associated with these phone numbers. They're not. It's just a whole list of phone numbers with no names and no addresses. When a terrorist number, just a terrorist number, is found, they plug it into these numbers, and it pops up with somebody they may be talking to in the United States. Again, no name and no address. And what we do with that is say, whoop, that's bad. We're going to give this to the FBI to determine who that person even is. And so that's the way we protected privacy, and that's why there's been 0 privacy violations with this, and it's been able to be used to stop 54 violent terrorist acts.